What's going on, Comicbook.com? I'm Jim Viscardi. Christian Hoffer is here in studio for the very first time for a very special episode of Unboxed because we're talking Disney Lorcana, and with us is Ryan Miller, the brand manager for Lorcana, to just walk us through the whole thing.
So
Thanks
excited.
for coming, man.
Thanks for having me. This is so exciting.
This is, look, it's one of those things where when this game was announced and Christian, was telling me kind of all about it, I am a more recent convert to trading card games.
Welcome aboard.
I have played a lot of Pokemon and all that jazz, but I have a 7-year-old who is obsessed with Disney. She is obsessed with learning card games.
That's awesome.
And so when this game got announced, it was basically like, oh, we're gonna have some fun. Right?
Yeah, that's exciting to hear because we designed it for new people that are in trading card game, but also for veteran trading card gamers. But one of the things I'm very excited about are families playing together. I think that's something we heard a lot from D23 when we announced the game. A lot of folks are like, my kids will play this with me, or my wife will play this with me, my husband will play this with me. Like that kind of bringing families together is something that even now I just get a little goosebumpy talking about there.
Well, so take us back to the genesis of this in a bit. Where does the idea, what sparks the idea, and then what, in as easy a way to describe it, if it's possible, how do you go from that idea to basically where we are today?
Oh, that's a lot there. So it all begins, like many great stories, in a bar.
Oh, perfect.
This is before I even came on board, but Ravensburger had met with Disney. They do these kind of regular meetings where they just kind of get together and talk about like, what is the future? What should we do? Because Ravensburger and Disney have been working together a very long time. I mean, you might be familiar with like Villainous, which has been a great line for us, a really fun game. So it was after one of these summit meetings that the Ravensburger group went to this bar called The Famous in Glendale, California. Started talking about, what if we did a Disney trading card game? It was almost one of those ideas where it's like, if you say it too much, it might blow away into the ether. It's just like, oh man, because it was that exciting, right? And so that was really where it was born. And then as a result, we codenamed it Project Famous. Like that was our code name for a long time until we came up with the name Lorcana. And then I had actually been working so I was a freelance game designer for 6+ years at this point. Before that worked at Wizards of the Coast on Magic the Gathering and Duel Masters and other stuff. And I had been working with Ravensburger on a Princess Bride board game. And Princess Bride is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love designing board games, so here we are, already kind of putting two things together that I really love. But through that experience, I got to know Ravensburger as a company and really see their attention to detail and their love that they put in. I mean, the games they put out are just beautiful. I mean, they're just, and I think that when you put that kind of love and attention to detail in a game, like people feel it, even if they can't, even if it doesn't pop into their head when they touch it, when they hold that box, they just feel like the people who made this love this, right? And I think that's one of the things that really made me feel like not only can Ravensburger, when I was finally pitched the idea and asked to come on board, I was like, well, can they do? It's such a huge undertaking, but it was things like that said not only is Ravensburger a company that can do this, I think they're the only company that can really do it right, because the team that we have and the team we put together, not only are, we brought a lot of folks in from the trading card game realm, but we're all Disney nerds. Like I've been going to Disneyland since I was a little boy, and it's just, so to me, again, it was like the Princess Bride experience. I'm putting two things together that I love, trading card games and Disney. And so for me, it was an easy choice. And so once I got on board, my good friend Steve Warner, who was already there, he actually was my producer on the Princess Bride game. He and I started the process of figuring out, who are we designing this game for? What do we need to give them to have a fun experience? And really what we came up with, we wanted to kind of hit two really different targets. We wanted folks that have never played a trading card game before to feel comfortable and have an accessible game that they can kind of try out and understand. This is a different type of game than most. The idea even of making your own deck is kind of like, what? It's mind-blowing, but it's also really exciting and compelling. But we also wanted existing trading card gamers to really see that, oh, this is not a kid's game. Like this is a serious game. I can take this very seriously. And so that was kind of our initial goal, that accessibility, but also the deep strategy.
Right.
And then from that, we started this 6-month process of trying something new out and getting really excited about it, and then something cracks the egg and you just dash down to the rocks and you just start all over again. And we did that like, I don't know, a dozen times before we finally came up with what we're gonna show today. But that's game design. I mean, it's you get so excited and energized, and then something breaks your something about the game. You're like, and then it goes back down. So that's very. I mean, that's
so. So how many cards are literally just drawings? You know, when in the early days, just drawings on like printer paper that you maybe have cut out.
That's all we did. I mean, that's all we did. Right? Is really basic, because we wanted to. I think when you're doing an early playtest and prototype of a game, you want to approximate the experience as much as possible, and so we couldn't just do words on cards and numbers on cards. We needed images too, and so we have a ton of those from our work before, and we just kind of cobbled them together and printed them out. And even just those early games the game designs weren't what we wanted, but just it really showed us that playing these characters in front of you is just delightful. It's just such a joy to see all these characters together, and so we knew, like, okay, whatever we do has to facilitate this, right? If you want to just put your favorite characters together in a deck, go for it. If you want to make a princess deck, absolutely do that, right? I have a pirate deck that I really enjoy. So, we wanted to make sure that whatever we did kind of facilitated that. If you want to just put some cards together, but if you do want to get that deeper experience, that's there too, right?
Nice.
So when you set out to make Lorcana, Disney isn't just like an IP, it's like, an umbrella of IPs.
Yeah.
So how did you figure out a way to combine all these different things, from like Mickey Mouse to Elsa to, all the princesses, all like Aladdin? How did you figure out a way to combine all of those into one coherent universe?
Well, that was our first challenge, really, is we wanted to make sure, we want to send a message that we're here to stay. We're very serious about this game, and you can be comfortable taking this game seriously as well. And one of the ways we are sending that message is by creating this world that it underlies everything. We didn't want to just say, hey, here's a bunch of Disney characters on cards. So we had a narrative design team that worked on the story behind it. Basically, and just in a nutshell, the story takes place in what's called the Great Illuminary, which is actually behind us on the screen here. Basically like this floating repository of all stories ever told. And because if it doesn't keep track of these stories, the peopleverse start to forget them. One day it's mysteriously empty, it's mysteriously abandoned. No one knows what happened, and the folks that originally were there, they're called illumineers. The illumineers have disappeared, no one knows why. And so the illuminary itself actually starts to call out to people in our world. Say, hey, I need you, do you accept the call? And these people, when they accept the call, they're kind of transported into the Great Illuminary, and that's when they begin to learn the magic of Lorcana. And Lorcana is just the ability to use magic ink to summon glimmers of Disney characters off of the page. And a glimmer of a Disney character is almost like a sentient snapshot of a character, right? It's not the actual character, it's this magical version of them. And it was used in the early days of the Illuminary to understand stories better. The early Illumineers would summon them and basically like learn about their story from these glimmers so they could better record them. But in our storyline, something strange has happened, and even the Illuminary itself is trying to figure out what's going on. And so that's why it's calling to this new generation of Illumineers from our world to eventually learn magic, and then learn Lorcana magic, and then figure out the mystery.
One of the cool thing, Christian alluded to it, is basically the breadth of properties, Disney properties that you've touched just even in this first set. I mean, look, I've seen some that you've got The Little Mermaid, and you've got Moana, you've got Sleeping Beauty. There's a lot. That's just like scratching the surface. One, I guess, what is your favorite, and what's the one property that you were like, look, this one's getting in there.
Well, there's like a few different answers to that. My favorite princess movie from a musical standpoint is Moana.
All right.
I absolutely love the music and the story. It's a great film. Sure. My favorite princess movie from a story standpoint is actually Princess and the Frog. I love the story of that. I love how it's different, so different than the other princess stories. And just the music is amazing in that as well. And so I wanted to make sure that obviously both of those would get in. And those are pretty easy, like Moana, Princess and the Frog, those are gonna get into a Disney game.
Right.
But the one that I kind of abused my power a little bit to get into the game was Sword in the Stone. That is an underrated masterpiece.
I love it.
It is my favorite Disney movie. I can watch it anytime. The music, that's got this jazzy score. I love Merlin's character. The story itself, of course, is the story of the Sword in the Stone, the King Arthur and all that stuff. So if you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. It's just amazing. And so I made sure there were some Merlin cards in there. There's some other cards that just pull from that story.
Sure.
But one of the great things about having so many cards, we have 204 cards in this first set. That means we can hit like the superstars, but we also can do the deep cuts. I mean, there's a Treasure Planet card in here, right? Which is so exciting, I think.
There is a group of people right now watching this video going, he just said treasure planet. He did.
And then there's a group of people who are going, where's my live action treasure planet?
Must be on the scope of my game. So, you know.
No, for sure. For sure. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the set.
Okay.
Right, and let's kind of dive into it a little bit and just go through what makes up kind of this initial kind of wave, and then we'll maybe dig a little bit deeper.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Let's do it. So the first set, really, we wanted to kind of have a broad range of property, just to kind of show, kind of set that precedent of like, this is what we're doing with this game, and we focused mainly on the animated features.
Sure.
But we also pulled some from the shorts. Like one of my favorite cards is Mickey Brave Little Tailor, which pulls from an amazing short where he's a tailor and he's swatting these flies in his shop, and he gets 4 flies with one. And now, unbeknownst to him, there's a big giant problem in the town. And so he rushes out as the townsfolk are complaining about the giants. He goes, "I killed 4 with 1 blow." And they're like, "Oh, well, you're perfect then. Go up the beanstalk, if you can do that." It's a great short, and the art that we got for that is just, is one of my favorites. So, we have like the Musketeers. We have, Mickey, Donald, and Goofy as the Musketeers. We were able to pull from a lot of different shorts, but the vast majority are from the animated features. So you've got plenty of Aladdin cards in there, lots of Moana, lots of we've got Sleeping Beauty. It's been really fun because we're doing all new art. Every piece is a piece of art done just for the game, and so it's been really amazing to kind of revisit some of these movies.
So for the art, is it mostly reinterpretations of classic moments, or are they just new pieces embodying the characters and the story?
Yeah, so it's actually a little bit of both. So one of the things we wanted to do with this game is obviously, show the characters like and love them, because and love them, and you want to see your favorite characters. But we also want to take some characters and show them in ways they've never been shown before. And that's been really fun. Like we've been able to, like one of my favorite pieces I have in my little tome of cards here is Scar from A Lion King, but he's made of lava, right? I mean, it's just a very cool piece of art. And so it's a really, it's just a really exciting thing to be able to do. Even, Steamboat Willie here, just to see him, this is also one of my favorite pieces right here, because, Steamboat Willie's in black and white, everything else is in color. It just shows, and this kind of encapsulates like bringing some of these characters into this new realm of trading card games. But yeah, it's been great. And the art team, I can never say enough about the art team. They've just knocked it out of the park. I mean, we have this team of art directors, and then we have a lot of freelance artists that have been doing this art for us. And to see what they come up with, because sometimes we'll just say, hey, sometimes we're very specific about what we need, and sometimes we're like, hey, wow us, and hey, I just cannot wait for folks to get this in their hands and see the art that we've done for this game. It's gorgeous.
How often, when you contact the artists, how often are they like, that's my favorite movie, I will have this piece in like 2 weeks?
Well, that's part of the strategy, really. I mean, if we know that a certain artist has certain favorites, and clearly they should be doing those characters, because when you're excited about something, and you're definitely going to put more into it, and the result is going to be even better. And so, I can't talk much about set 2, but I just saw the proofs for set 2, and it's like, wow, the art is amazing, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. It's so exciting.
We've got a lot that we're going to go through, kind of all through. So make sure you keep it locked in Comicbook.com, because we're going to have so many more videos about this. But I have 2 kind of sort of related, but not necessarily questions. The first one, given the breadth of properties and things that you're touching on, and it is Disney, we're Comicbook.com, and so will we see some superheroes?
Well, it's when it comes to what's happening in the future, I don't really like to talk about that.
Sure.
And because I like my job, basically, right? So I like having a roof. I like it. I love it. Food to eat, it's great. Perfect. So I'm not going to talk about the future stuff here.
That's fine.
But we definitely have some exciting stuff coming up.
All
but for now, this is a Disney game. Yeah. Focusing on the animated.
Well, there's Disney superheroes, the Incredibles. Where's my Frozone card?
I think so. The other part of this that I wanted to touch on, kind of in general, right, about card games and things like that, is obviously there is an aspect of collectability, right?
Absolutely.
And I know one of the biggest things about the game, and something that you've said is incredibly important to you, is the accessibility and making sure.
Absolutely.
But that said, there is obviously a collectible nature to some of this stuff. And so can you walk us through what that kind of looks like and how you guys determine what is, a rarer card than other?
Sure.
And stuff like
I mean,
that.
that's once again, you've asked a mouthful. I love this, Jim. Thank you so much. Obviously, collectability and collecting the game is its own game, right? It's like a quest, right?
Yep.
And each player, each collector, they're on a different quest. Somebody might want to collect all the princesses. Somebody might want to collect the entire set. Sure. Some might want it all in foil, right? And those are all super fun quests to go on. And we want to make sure that if you just collect this game, you have a home here too, right? I mean, this is going to be a really fun game to collect. We have actually 5 different rarities. Okay. It goes from common all the way up to legendary. And as far as like how we decide that's more of a game design decision, because we tend to want the higher rarity cards to be the more complex cards. Sure. I mean, you're going to have a kind of a spectrum of complexity in any card game when you're designing the cards themselves. And so what we don't want is to flood the commons with all these complex cards, because again, that goes to accessibility. When you're opening a pack and you're kind of thumbing through it, you're like, you don't want to see paragraphs after paragraphs, right, on the cards. Right. And so we tend to reserve those more specific or more complex cards for the higher rarity. And so we actually we start with what we call a set skeleton, which is not as scary as it sounds. It's a spreadsheet. So, right off the bat.
That is scarier than you, I think.
It can be, definitely, especially when you try to lock cells. Anyway, so, but we assign rarity right off the bat, and then our narrative team will assign as many of the characters as they can, so that we know when we design a card how rare it is and what character it represents. And that way, because one of my goals of this game and our game design team's goals are to tie as much story. So, like, if a character should feel in gameplay like that character does in their story, or like that is indicative of that character.
Well, who is a character or can you rattle off some characters that sit on the higher end of the rarity scale versus?
He wants to know which is the Charizard card of the set.
I am very much the collecting aspect is very much, that's my game, right? Like that's
what
what I
fun.
love. And so, but I have to imagine too, just even from a story standpoint, that like you guys have to be pretty considerate of who you're deeming a more challenging card in general for gameplay, but also to get. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And
so who are they?
Like what we don't want to do, what we didn't do is we didn't like reserve a character just for rare. Like,
sure. Okay.
So if you like a character, you're going to see that character, especially the more popular ones that have lots of different versions, because we're not just doing one Moana card, right? There's different versions of her.
Right.
And you should see those at various rarities, because that could be kind of sad if you're like, all the commons are like the henchmen or something like that. You're a little sad, right? You're just like, oh man, where's my Moana?
Right.
And so we didn't do anything like that.
Okay.
Right? I've got some
Let's look at some of them.
right here. This is our folio, our card folio we made. Well, this one is the Mickey Mouse that we did. We gave this away at D23, and it was really fun because no one knew, what it did in the game. The gameplay hadn't been announced yet. But once you know the gameplay, you can see this is a very powerful card, but it also costs a lot of ink, and we'll get into that as we go.
There's the scar made out of lava.
There's the scar made of lava there. This is one of my favorite pieces here. And this is a common card, but this is a Tinkerbell, and she's outfitted like she's called Tiny Tactician, and she's outfitted like, she's got a thimble for a helmet, and she's got a button shield, and I mean, it's just I just love it. It's also really good. Actually, both of these cards are a really good example of our narrative team's penchant for puns. So like Tinkerbell, the Tiny Tactician says, sometimes all you need is a little tactical genius. Right? And the one on Mickey Mouse, it's when defeat looms and victory hangs by a thread, a hero bolts to the rescue, patching things up through sheer determination. Like that one, it even got me a little like, is that much? Is that too much? But you know what? I loved it. It's because part of Disney is the whimsy, right? It's just super fun, and we definitely want that in this game here.
Is that an Emperor's New Groove card?
Oh yeah, Cusco. Not only is it Cusco, but he has no touchy. That's his ability, no touchy.
I love that you've got a card that is just called Let It Go.
It's actually one of my favorite cards because there's a type of card called action cards, and they're kind of this card that just does a thing and then goes to the discard pile. But a subset of them represent songs, and there's actually rules for like you can play it or you can have a character that you have play it, and so it's like they're singing the song. But one of the fun side effects of song cards is that it's almost impossible not to sing the song. Like you have to sing it when you play Let It Go. You're gonna like Let It Go, and this one especially because what this does is basically gets rid of one of your opponent's characters. So it's like Let It Go, Let It Go, Let It Go. And so one of my favorite things about Lorcana is when you have a room full of people playing it, you will just randomly hear Disney songs being sung, and it's just delightful. It's just so much fun. But yeah, so here's a Stitch card that I think is a sleeper hit there. I don't think that the playtesters have caught on, or the fans have caught onto this one, but that is a very good card.
I don't think I ever would have expected, of all characters in the Disney universe, for Flotsam to get a card.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the kind of deep cuts you're getting here. Flotsam has a card.
We've got Robin Hood. I mean, this is one of my favorite
Robin
pieces.
Hood, I mean, that's great.
Robin Hood's an amazing movie. It's like, here, let's take this very English story and put some country and Western music into it, and it just works. It's just beautiful. But yeah, I'm just so proud of what the team's done, and really.
You've got one of the greatest villains, Disney villains, in Hans. Hans is getting a card. This is great stuff. The thing I want to ask is, now that we're flipping through this, the way you guys are approaching foils is really nice. Look, we've unboxed and broken a ton of different cards here, right? And it's one of those things where foils and foil application and all of that stuff is something that we nerds really get into intense arguments about. These are gorgeous. So just walk us through the mindset, how you wanted to approach, your foil cards, and we'll kind of go from
Absolutely.
there.
First thing is that we know that, I'm a lifelong trading card gamer. I love me some shiny cards. I'm basically like Tamatoa, shiny. I just love that stuff. And so we wanted to make sure that we did this right. And so what we're using is actually a cold foil process. And the cold foil, what that means, is almost like printing the foil on the card. This kind of, I guess, is a bit of a nerdy
keep going.
manufacturing
This
thing.
is where we need to go.
Like a lot of foils, the paper itself is already foil, and then you print the card over that, right? And with cold foil, it's more like you're printing the foil over the card. And both systems let you kind of pick out parts that are going to be foil and parts that are not to really make the art pop, and that's what we've done here. The nice thing that I like about cold foiling is it really mitigates the curling effect that all foils are going to curl a little bit depending on atmosphere and all that other stuff.
Right.
But the cold foiling really mitigates that issue. But it really makes, the way the art team is kind of picked out, it's called a white plate. If you really want to get nerdy, it's called a white plate, and the white plate basically is where we're not putting foil.
Okay.
And so that allows, where we do put foil, that difference allows us to, you've got Tamatoa right here, actually one of my favorite cards here, because this is Tamatoa, Drab Little Crab. Now, if you know his song, you know that he says, Tamatoa wasn't always this glam, I was a drab little crab once, and I'm like, we've got to do this. We've got to do Drab Little Crab, and so we did him as almost like a teenager. It looks like he's got the buck teeth, he's got barnacles that kind of look like pimples, but he's holding up his first piece of shiny, and you can see how we picked that out, so it's really shiny right there. That's one of my favorites. This Tinkerbell is also one of my favorites. I talked earlier about how we're taking some characters in different directions. This is giant Tinkerbell. That's Captain Hook's ship right there. This is giant Tinkerbell. That was really fun. Or this Donald Duck that he's got this kind of robot leg machine that he's driving. It's just super fun. One of my favorite cards from many different aspects is Grammatala. This card here, I think that the way the foil kind of picks it out, this might be hard to see.
It looks watercolor.
Yeah, it's amazing. The art style is great. Grammatala, though, her ability, the way it plays in the game, is that when she's banished from play, and we'll get into that on the play, she becomes a resource among your other resources, and so basically, even after she passes, she's still helping you, just like in the movie, right?
Love that.
And to me, that really fits well with, what I want to do with this game and what our team wants to do, which is really pack as much story and as much character as we can into the gameplay, and that means tying not only what the card looks like, the art, but tying it to what it does in the game. So when you play No Touchy, that ability No Touchy, you actually don't want to touch that card. You actually don't want to, your opponent doesn't want to challenge it because it's bad if you do. And so those kinds of connections, those thematic, mechanical connections really add to that, the fun, I think.
Last question I'll ask on that front, more from the collector standpoint. How often does someone come across a foil card? Right.
Oh yeah, so I actually didn't go into foils that much, so I answer the questions I want to answer. I'm kidding, I do want to answer this one too. So what we're doing is what's called parallel foil, and that just means that every card gets a foil version, right? And then every pack will have one random foil in it. So you'll always get a foil in every pack, and it's one card from the entire set of 204 cards. And so if you want, one of your side quests you can go on is to collect a whole set of foil, or your whole deck could be foil if you want, that sort of thing, which gives you actually a strategic advantage if you position the sun just right, because it'll bounce and it blinds your opponent, and they're like, I can't see, and then you can make some plays, and Yeah. So there you go. Some strategy for you.
Nice.
Some strategy
All right.
advice for you.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, we have so much more that we're going to get into, but so I want to thank you so much for kind of breaking down the game for us in the broadest sense, because I've learned a terrible amount. You knew it already, so it doesn't matter. But for more on Lorcana, keep it locked in to Comicbook.com.